Welcome to Idle Red Hands, a podcast from Japan about gaming and gamer life. And welcome back to Idle Red Hands. I'm Chris.
I'm Wayne.
I'm La.
Cyborgs.
What is a cyborg?
I said I like transhumanism, and I think there's... Well, of course, transhumanism contains the element of cybernetics. I think it's kind of different than the standard Hollywood version of cybernetics that we think of usually.
So for this episode, what is a cyborg? What are we talking about when we say cyborgs?
I would just say any kind of biological organism that incorporates some kind of cybernetics in it. A mix of biological and robotic parts.
Oh, I know we're famous for splitting hairs in there, but...
I'm famous for splitting hairs. Continue.
Right there with him, buddy. Can it work the other way around?
Can I split this hair? I don't think famous.
Who said famous? Did I say famous?
Yeah, anyway, when you say a mix of biological and robotic parts, can it work in both directions? I.e., a person who gets a robotic arm, he's biological, he gets a robotic part. Or vice versa, where it's like the Terminator, where it's a robotic being, but it gets skin, a biological element to it.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Both cool.
I mean...
What is it?
It'd be pretty hard to split
Bicentennial
hair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where the robot goes in reverse and becomes more human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same story elements. And it is a mix.
Mm-hmm.
So they're having to deal with both the cybernetic or bionic parts of them and with their human parts. So yeah, I would say that would count. And yeah, I also would say if there's some sort of thing, like, is consciousness biological? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But uploading your consciousness onto a computer, a human consciousness onto a computer,
mm-hmm.
and basically copying yourself, I would say, for the sake of this episode, that's a cyborg as well, or at least close enough that it's something to discuss, because I think it deals, again, with the same kind of story elements or game elements.
Yeah.
How about the other way? In other words, like
an AI
in a human body. Would you also consider that a cyborg?
How are they in the body?
Artificial intelligence, and if you can say, for example, upload your brain into a computer, it means your thoughts can be digitized. Can they download a computer into your brain?
In other words, you kind of have a blank brain, and you download an AI consciousness into it. So a consciousness
story.
A consciousness that never started off as being human.
Yeah.
Would that be a cyborg as well? Okay.
See, I think I would think of it the other way around, because the mix of robotics and biological components, for me, that kind of makes a cyborg. Whereas, like, moving the brain to a digital medium, it seems kind of separate. I don't really have a good reason for it, but it seems different.
Well, what do you mean? Were we kind of counting the consciousness as being biologic?
That's the thing. Maybe I don't think of consciousness so much as biological. I think it's more of a separate thing. But maybe I'm getting too far off.
Maybe AI is different, like uploading into the biological thing, because I think that the basic element of the cyborg lends itself more to human towards cybernetic.
Yeah. I think cyborgs are...
So maybe Bicentennial Man is actually, while it could be by some definitions a cyborg,
mm-hmm.
the actual story elements itself are more AI or things like that, because then it's like the movie AI, where it's like the Pinocchio story, they want to be a real boy.
One thing of in the sense of telling a story, it seems that they're both really on the same kind of plane. It's dealing with what is the human condition, and how do you deal with humans who may not be human or fully human anymore. That seems to be a major theme in cybernetic stories, and that would fit with both AI
and I guess the question is, are they still human?
Mm-hmm.
And the operative word being still.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
if you look
at the movie AI, or if you look at Star Trek with Data, and they want to be more human or want to explore that side, we wouldn't think that's a cyborg story or similar, because that's an AI story, or that's the Pinocchio story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the cyborg is about losing your humanity or regaining your humanity. So I think the uploading the human consciousness onto a computer can fall into that, because are you still human?
Mm-hmm.
If you're uploading your thing and then into this whatever cybernetic memory bank.
Yeah.
That then is implanted into a full conversion robot or a full conversion board.
If you can make a backup of yourself and never die, you're not mortal, or are you immortal? I mean, what does that mean?
But immortality, I think, comes up with cybernetics. You can somehow keep this brain in a jar alive,
mm-hmm.
and it's just hooked up to these robot bodies. Everybody say that's
what a great character to play, by the way. We were talking about your iron lung before. How about a brain in a jar?
Brain in a jar, but you're putting it in a robot body. The iron lung idea was that you wouldn't be able to move.
No, I think I'd be a fun character to be a brain in a jar. All you can do is sit there and be sarcastic.
Obnoxious brain in the jar.
Hey,
where are you going? Where are you going?
Wasn't that kind of in the I forget the name of it. The Robot Wars, the beginning part of the Dune trilogy that got rewritten.
Oh, the Butler Angel had. And
yeah, wasn't there kind of this like collective of just like brains that all they were kind of like thought?
They were brain trust.
No. I mean, like there was just this like monastery of guys who had sort of transcended the sort of need for, I guess, a human body, and they were just essentially brains in a jar. But they would essentially not live forever, but they were really old, and all they did was sort of think all day. But anyway, when you first said the brain in a jar, I immediately flashed the Futurama Head Museum.
I flashed it to Dracula.
There
was this like some Chinese scientist who's a brain in a jar.
Whereas I imagined a small sarcastic brain in a jar. Well, what you gonna do?
I think it was about the same size as the sarcastic brain in the jar, but well, so we did the baseline. So looking at like the Terminator. Terminator is a cyborg.
Definitely. Yeah.
But any other famous cyborgs or cyborg real or fictional? I guess my first experience, the first time I was introduced to the concept, was the $6 Million Man.
Okay.
It's awesome. I was also introduced to using slow motion to
make things look like they were going faster.
Super fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're almost there.
It's true. It's very true. They have those new legs that have it's kind of like almost a spring in a leg, so people can run faster than regular runners if they don't have legs.
The ones that just kind of look like
if they have these fake legs rather than.
Yeah, anybody can run faster than someone with no legs. But sorry, that was pretty tasteless. But
well, what if they were paralyzed? They wouldn't be able to run faster than someone with no legs.
All right. Dude, you know how I like to split hair, so I would split the hair. But if you can't use them, do you actually have them? All right. No, but weren't the prosthetic legs like the?
Dude,
they looked like kind of like a reverse. It looks kind of like a bow.
A bow, but it's backwards. Yeah, it's really cool.
No, that's not cybernetic by any means.
Well,
but
really? Incorporating
like a mechanical.
But it is artificial.
Yeah.
So is that person by your definition a cyborg?
That's a very good question, and by I think the definition that we're going with here, and by my personal one, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, technically it would kind of be a cyborg.
I can't remember his name. I should have looked it up beforehand. The recent Medal of Honor award winner from Iraq or Afghanistan. He threw. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. If you're listening to this podcast,
which I'm sure he is,
he's got the Medal of Honor. Doesn't need you.
But he picked up a grenade that the enemy had thrown into camp, and it blew up in his hand, and he lost his arm from it. But now he's got this robotic kind of arm, and it's really interesting because it has a sensor that when he touches an object with the hand closes around the object automatically. But it also has pressure sensors in it, so it closes just enough to pick up an object. Like if he touches a coffee cup, it'll close around the coffee cup, but it won't crush it or anything.
Right.
Just hold it there. You use it to shake hands with.
Kind of makes it difficult if you want to slap someone.
I don't know. I don't know how he controls the amount of pressure that there is.
Can he catch with it?
I'd imagine not. It seemed to move kind of slow. But
We're probably not there in terms of technology.
I don't remember the guy's name. I haven't looked that much into his situation, but just saying, that's obviously a robotic device, and it has some measure of intelligence with it, in that it can control how much pressure it's exerting and what it can sense things around.
Oh, I would say that, because that does have sensors on it, but I was just thinking about the bow legs. They actually don't have sensors. They're just kind of springs.
That's true. That's
it's kind of weird, because, you can extrapolate the slippery slope argument. If you consider a bow leg okay, how about a peg leg?
Oh, yeah. Cyborg pirates. And then, wouldn't you be mighty disappointed when you open up that gaming supplement? Just peg legs? Really?
The guy has a hook for a hand.
Cyber pirates.
No, that's a good one. I would like. Would you have to say the definition of a cyborg is then that the biological and the mechanical parts are somehow connected to each other? Like they influence each other. You have some. I mean, obviously
some kind of feedback or something.
Yeah, some kind of feedback.
Well, I don't know,
because like you said, if not, then yeah, you could argue that peg legs or traditional prosthetics.
I don't know how true it is, but I've heard before a theory that
or cyborgs.
There's a vein that runs through your ear, that's somehow connected to a nerve runs through your ear that's somehow connected to your sight. So having a pierced ear can actually improve your eyesight. And that's one of the reasons that pirates pierce their ears. I don't know if there's any truth to it or not.
That's got to be absolute
I heard
crap.
it's just to keep their wealth around them.
It doesn't sound very realistic to me. But anyway, if that were the case, for example, would that count? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's body modification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't count. I think there's only like one guy that's officially applied to be a cyborg.
No, I think, but I know who you're talking about.
Oh, sorry. Other people have tried to get it. One guy who actually has it on his
passport. Like he officially is kind of a cyborg.
Well, yeah,
on his passport.
That's because he's kind of a douchebag. But
yeah, he's from the country of douchebag. Yeah. No, but his name is Neil Harbison.
Why is it that we know his name and not the guy who won the Medal of Honor?
Well, I was planning to bring up Neil.
Someone takes better. No, I was going to say no. We all did research. As someone takes better notes than other people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that some people take notes.
But he's calling himself an cyborg because we should probably say he has an implant in his head, so he is colorblind.
Yeah.
And
did we determine it was an implant because he can take it out?
Yeah, but he's got to plug it into something, so there's got to be something implanted into his head.
Maybe
it's not like a set of headphones. It'd be like
because the picture it kind of just looked like one half of a headset.
I think he's jamming it into his head.
All right. What? He takes like the jack. Come on.
It's like an earring.
He's a suffering artist.
I guess so.
So anyway, he's colorblind, and this cybernetic, maybe I've coined that phrase, allows him to hear colors.
Yeah.
And basically, what it looks like he's, and we're kind of debating here, but he sticks something to the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's sticking it into an implant in the back of his head. Wayne thinks perhaps maybe not. And then it kind of loops to the front and it's not replacing his eye, it just kind of like is over his eye. So it kind of looks
it's got a little
bit like Geordi on Star Trek Next Generation. Kinda, yeah.
It's got a little speaker that fits into his ear and then it plays tunes for the colors, is that
it plays I wouldn't say tunes, it plays a tone.
Yeah.
A tone.
Based on the color. Because it's not like in his ear, it's like, oh, that means yellow. It's just a single.
He could have it where it just says pink.
Yeah, it probably should. It just
right?
said, you're now looking at yellow.
Right.
Yellow.
Yeah, well, the guy did do like soundscape artwork
he
before.
paints people the color, the sound of their colors in painting. He sounds like a douche.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've established that.
Oh, is that what that palette sounds like? Oh,
yeah.
Well done.
What I've always wondered is like, if it plays a tone for color,
I
mean, like, there's a lot of colors that you can see all at one time, so it wouldn't just be the discordant like.
Yeah.
Sorry,
how does that work? But
like, does he turn his head real slowly to get a single tone? You know.
Anyway, he insisted when he went to the passport office. I think he wanted to be a cyborg, and also he wanted to have the picture taken with the.
I think that's what whole started. Is he like
with his cybernetic, which he can take off. It's not like the hand where they're like, okay, can you take that hand off?
Yeah,
and you're like,
really? You can.
yeah, he won. So his passport photo's got a picture of him with this cybernetic, and actually you can see most of his face because it's not much.
Yeah.
And it's silly, like a colorblind. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know, like.
Well, I mean, I saw somebody who
it'd be like kind of but an artist doesn't want to have a paintbrush on
You're an artist.
Well, I'm not totally colorblind. Just certain colors. No, not even that. Just certain colors look similar to me.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to say,
but on your passport photo, it doesn't have a picture of you and a paintbrush. It's like,
no, it doesn't.
Hello. Yeah.
I was going to say,
sorry, that's who I am.
Yeah,
that's who I am.
I'm
an artist.
Not to spin off into religion, but it kind of actually bugs me a little bit that he got to take a picture of that because it's him, whereas someone who's like a devout Muslim would have to take off like the burqa and whatnot.
Yeah, but you can't see the face if they're wearing a full burqa.
I know, but like,
and this guy doesn't sound like he's going to take his cyborg off anyway, so it's probably easier to find him in that case.
Yeah, well, I guess so, but it's kind of like that's their religion, which is like a part of them. Where this douchebag gets to wear. I
think a better, and I don't know what the ruling would be. I think a better, I guess, analogy would be a sheik, because you can actually see their face,
right?
But they're not supposed to take off their
head covering.
Their head covering, yeah.
I suppose. Anyway, that was kind of a tangent. Anyway, back to cyborgs. The one that popped into my head was, of course, RoboCop.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I was actually looking online today, and Detroit actually is going to have the RoboCop statue built.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
That was kind of like,
they're building it out of chrome.
No, that building, I think it's going to be giant, like 8 foot, not giant, but like an 8 foot bronze.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like there was some debate about how
there's already a Rocky statue in Philly, though.
Oh yeah, there's a Rocky statue, and some people were kind of arguing that the RoboCop movie, it's not exactly, doesn't really paint Detroit in a great light, But someone else wrote an article, and they're like, well, that's kind of the whole point of RoboCop is, it's kind of a crappy place that
That's kind
he
of the
grew
point
up
of Detroit, too.
in. Well, yeah, but then if you look at the RoboCop person, and the character actually did a lot. He became human again. He's actually fighting against kind of all the injustice and corruption that happened in the movie. And you're kind of like, well, yeah, that's a great point. Why wouldn't you want that icon to kind of represent your city?
Yeah, Detroit can't beat down the Detroit citizens.
Yeah,
they will rise above.
Rise above.
Although
Detroit.
somebody did argue that then the statue should be RoboCop without the full helmet, sort of showing his humanity, rather than RoboCop with the full robotic helmet.
I think it's arguing too much.
Kind of getting into
for one thing, it's just a helmet.
I agree. But
It has nothing to do with how human he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, RoboCop is a Robotop. He's tops in my book.
I was thinking this little spinning device.
Robotop. Yes, Inception Part 2. Is he human? And is he in the dream? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Was it top? Anyway.
One of my favorite cyborgs was always Darth Vader.
I guess he's a
And
weird one.
Those are good examples because they're both a case where the most important thing about RoboCop and the most important thing about Darth Vader, as you find out later, is how much of their humanity have they retained.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like, RoboCop is definitely like a story about humanity, where like Darth Vader, like, yeah, he's part robotic, but it almost doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just assume he's kind of this bad guy, and he almost kind of, I would say, lost his humanity for a different reason, right? Not because of the implants or the cybernetic parts he has, just because of the crowd he hung out with.
Yeah.
I guess so, but it's still like a device to, I guess, it's like a metaphor for the humanity he lost because basically a soul. He's giving it over to the dark side, and he's also, as we find out, Obi-Wan Kenobi chopped him up.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Yeah, and like until the first movies happened, it was kind of like a physical metaphor for he's lost parts of his soul, which is why he has these robotic
it's much
parts.
more of a religious bent to Star Wars as well with that. But,
the whole kind of scene with him and Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first three movies,
it's interesting with a lot of Japanese cinema too, how they have kind of a different take. Now, one of my favorites is you ever heard of Battle Angel Alita? Before?
Didn't it come over as Battle Angel Gundam to the States?
I think so. I think it was actually maybe just Gundam, no Battle Angel to it.
Oh.
One of those two. But it's about this kind of there's this city called Zion, I think it is.
Gee, I wonder where the Wachowski brothers got that from.
Where do they get it? But it's kind of the perfect quote unquote society, but people who don't mix with society, they're too dirty or poor or whatever, they're thrown out. And this one girl is thrown out, and she's found by a cyberneticist who builds her robotic body, and kind of the story about her like living up through this junk world below Zion and getting to Zion. It's a really, really good story.
It was kind of more about she had no memories when you turned her on.
She had to regain her memories about what happened to her and stuff.
Yeah, I remember watching the anime of that, and you never even really got to see what happened up in the city.
Yeah.
But it was a really kind of gritty world in that there was a lot of scrounging going on for people just to like repair their parts, and that was when I was telling you about Lao, where they kind of had like the back alley lube shops where like there was like a black market organ trade going on, because when you lost a part, you had to replace it with robotics, and the organs, I think it was assumed they would get shipped up to this city in the sky, because they would obviously replace parts of themselves with human parts and therefore retain their humanity, whereas the gutter trash had to replace parts with robotic parts. And
yeah, that's right. I remember that. I think it was pretty interesting that the cyborgs were kind of an underclass to regular humans.
Yeah, you never really got to see the upper class.
It's a nice contrast between like biotech and cybertech.
Yeah.
Is if biotech is in your world and it's sufficiently advanced, then would that be actually preferable? And either way, whichever way you wanted to spin it, I think it would create some sort of clash, whether even if it was just as benign as like a fashion clash.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd also be like I think more interesting would be status. Is one is definitely superior than the other, or preferable than the other, or at least a culture would even split based on
an interesting kind of divide in there, because maybe the cybernetics, maybe it's stronger and more durable and tougher, so that might be an option. But
biotech heals.
Yeah, biotech heals. Maybe there's no sense of touch with the cybernetics, or maybe there's very little control, so you can't live a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you could, just like anything, you kind of build in an obsolete date on cyber tech parts.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that with biotech too, if you're growing stuff.
I've seen that in a couple of movies about AI and robots rather than cybernetics. But that idea of you're the previous model. We don't make repair parts for you, and this AI or robot is stuck, and he has to upgrade himself, or like some people are coming.
He's immortal, but he's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what always. I think definitely needs to be explored with cyborgs.
Sorry, I just imagine a person with a Best Buy date or something on their.
Well, basically, yeah. Like when you think about just buying a mobile phone,
mm-hmm.
and they're constantly being upgraded. So, would you really want to commit to buying a cybernetic?
Right.
It's like a cybernetic eye, because it's just going to, there's going to be the Ibernetic 3,
mm-hmm.
the II. II3.
II.
It's going to come out, and you're stuck with
pirates.
the 2. You're stuck with 2.
Right.
Now you could say, well, at least it's better than your old eye,
mm-hmm.
but it's not as good as the number. It's not as good as 4, or not. So, just because, like your phone, you can still call people on a mobile phones, but why do you want to always upgrade? And it's going to be the same with cybernetics. You're going to look and, sure, I'm twice as strong as a regular person, but darn, I'm not 4 times as strong as as the new models allow you to be.
Yeah.
So I think that would be interesting to play, and what you would do, and what you're saying there, Wayne, with that, whether it's stealing different parts in that, is you're always trying to upgrade and the struggle to upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I never understood about I think that would be a real scary thing about transsexualal
mm-hmm.
I can't even commit to a tattoo,
which is why you don't have any.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. Also, they're tacky.
Well, you don't have to get a tramp stamp.
Yeah, actually, I saw a TV show a while back about that, about Japanese new halves. How
they get tattoos?
No, about Lyle was mentioning about a sex change operation.
Right.
Yeah, committing to that, go on.
There was this woman who's one of the oldest new halves in Japan, and she was back.
Could you just what's a new half?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. It's a new half is kind of combines the terms transgender and transsexual. It's a person who prefers to identify as a woman, so it can include
prefers to identify as the opposite gender.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's in Japanese TV, they're almost exclusively men as women.
Right.
But yeah,
interesting. So what about the all-female stage production shows where they
Takudazuka?
Yeah, well, no one outside of Japan is going to know that, which is why I'm trying to explain it a little
bit. Look it up online, Takudazuka.
But it's kind of it's only women stage productions.
Well, we'll put a link in our
that they have male characters played by women.
Yeah.
Are they classified as being new half?
No, because it's a job. Same thing where kabuki people, all men play women. They're not considered gay or transgenders.
So it's
sorry.
No, new halves to cover transsexuals and
people who identify themselves as the opposite
because
gender.
There's Matsuko Deluxe. She's never had a surgery, but she dresses as a woman and puts on makeup.
The really fat one?
Yes.
Yeah, but is she considered a new half?
Yes, absolutely. Like when they do new half specials, Iko as well.
Yeah. I just thought they just had her on. She's Iko is a transvestite, but is she actually classified is he classified as a new half?
Oh, well, I don't think.
Or he's just kind of had
official classification as it is, a nickname for.
Oh, yeah. And we should also say hafu is someone who's biracial.
Yeah.
New hafu is not somebody who's newly biracial. It's a trans.
You think they would be?
Anyway, sorry, but you were making the point about the oldest trans.
Well, it's actually very interesting. They're doing
oldest transsexual in Japan.
Yeah, they're doing a show about new halves, and she was saying how jealous she is of people nowadays because not only the cultural difference between then and now, how acceptable it is, But back in the day, there was no surgery for that. There weren't breast implants 50 years ago. She was quite old, or anything like that. And now there's people like what's it? Ai Furukawa? No,
I don't know.
Ayako?
No, it's definitely Ai. I think it's Furukawa Ai, but she's
got the big face. Big head.
Maybe.
Anyway, go on.
Not particularly big, but she won the beauty pageant in Thailand recently.
Okay.
But like she's gorgeous. I mean, she's had lots of surgeries done, and I think she's a beautiful woman. She
had lots of surgeries done.
Lots, yeah. And I would never see her walking down the street and ever think that she was a man. Even when she talks, she has a pretty husky voice, but she dresses her voice up as a woman. And yeah. So it's really stark contrast. And like the old woman was saying, like all she could do back in the day was just pull her underwear on really tight to hide her junk.
Thank you for that image. But I was going to say, but kind of looping back to the point Lyle made about like obsoletism. It's like why? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but like, why would you even do that? Like if that's the only option you have, then I guess so. But like, if you look at the surgery back on here, like that's all you can offer me. Why even kind of do it then?
Some people that's who they are.
I know that's who you are, but
absolutely. What I was thinking is a particular example of someone who kept real life example. They kept changing their mind, so they kept switching from man to woman.
I've seen that. Yeah, they actually exist.
And I'm just like, isn't that just going to cause your certain parts of your body to just break down because it's had so much surgery? Like, look at Michael Jackson's face.
Right.
So it's the same with cybernetics. It's like, sure, you're like, we might be free with buying a phone because you're just buying a phone and you're going to put it in your pocket or something.
That's as close to inside you as it gets.
Yeah, if you're implanting the phone in your head and then you take it out and implant another one, take it out, and I know the body's resilient, but there's got to be certain limitations.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and it could be a very interesting way to go with a story. Just have player characters who are maybe obsolete. But I think in the real world, I think companies would be ahead of that. Like they'd make the parts changeable or upgradable because it's just more money that you can get. That's why they come up with so many new phones.
So you're basically installing, for example, let's say an arm. You're installing the housing.
Exactly.
And then there's different things you would put in it. Like, for example,
I imagine you have like a port up in your shoulder socket where it's just like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're talking about something that's actually inside.
Then you think about a disk drive versus a USB port now, or whatever. Like, whatever port that they use for the arm, they got to standardize it. But then somebody could easily go, that's not the most efficient way to put it in.
Absolutely.
The most efficient way is this way. Yeah. And now you can't even put in a new arm.
Like now we're getting up to the Thunderbolt ports, which are what
they're everything. They do power, they do video, they do
as
data
opposed to you had USB 2.0, FireWire, and now you got Thunderbolt. When those aren't compatible, so it's kind of the same thing.
Well, same thing with the phones when they switch from an analog to a digital network, and TVs as well.
Yeah.
That plug in the wall only goes so far.
Yeah, that would be kind of really.
Can you imagine that?
Taxing on your body.
They've been doing that where they say by this date, they're giving you 2 years notice, you have to switch over your house to digital TV or you can't watch TV anymore because they're upgrading the signal. Could you imagine that with cybernetics? By this time in 3 years, you're going to have your brain upgraded or you're no longer going to be able to get on the phone net thing.
I mean, it's a bit cyberpunk-ish, but I could see companies doing that because
Absolutely.
Companies are ultimately there to make money, and kind of like the cyberpunk society is that kind of dark, kind of gritty, we own you essentially, kind of like RoboCop, like they owned him. Yeah, so it's just kind of like replacing parts or like swapping things out or doing gender changes. Like eventually, wouldn't you kind of like end up with nothing?
We're all plastic or something.
Yeah, we're all plastic. So one of the other animes that it was only like a three I guess episode thing was kind of like a spin-off of the Bubblegum Crisis series, which was called like AD Police Vision. Kind of like police stories, and one of them was a RoboCop-esque story where this police officer gets damaged pretty much beyond repair during I guess not a mission, but the company kind of slots him into like an all robotic body.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the only thing about him that's still flesh is his tongue. Don't know why, because they could have synthesized his voice or something. But yeah, like this robotic body has no sense of touch. You know, the only way he can sort of feel anything anymore is his tongue, and so the only way he kind of has to remind himself that he's still human is to bite his tongue. So there were I thought there were kind of creepy images of him sitting in this, like, you know, SWAT vehicle waiting to go out and just kind of biting his tongue. And he ultimately loses, right? He just kind of loses humanity and ends up pretty much killing everybody, except for his partner. And then at the end, you know, when you kind of put him down, he actually requests to be essentially shot in the tongue so he could actually sort of feel himself dying. So, like he knows he's going to die, right? Like the robot body's damaged up and he knows he kind of has to be killed. And yeah, he actually requests that the barrel is placed on his tongue. That final shot. It's kind of, you know.
Do me one thing, shoot me in the tongue.
Well, it wasn't all dramatic as that. It was just, it was, I don't know, like...
When you think about it, though, when you pull the trigger, it's probably going to just destroy him instantly.
Yeah, put the gun in your mouth, I suppose, but...
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things. And it wasn't, I don't know, it was anime, so it wasn't kind of that cheesy, bad Japanese acting, you know. It was kind of like, you actually kind of not felt for the guy, but...
Cartoon acting.
I don't know, it's weird, like... We've talked about it before, with that Battleship Yamato one, and... I don't know, like, bad acting didn't really come across in anime?
Well, Japanese acting, I think, mirrors anime, and it doesn't really work in
yeah, when you make it flesh and blood, then the over-exaggerated gestures and voice, vocal acting comes across very
exactly. Animated
odd.
Characters not looking each other in the eye is fine. It can look artistic. They can kind of float and bite for each other. It doesn't work for real people. Real people look at each other.
Yeah.
And the monologuing. I mean, that's probably just as much monologuing in anime, but it's fun. Anyway,
yeah, that was a tangent. But
well, no, it gets back into, and I think we're moving on to how would you play a cyborg, and I think a lot of times you might be playing it as like how much of your humanity do you retain,
right,
and how much are you losing as you're replacing parts. But I think even more compelling would be if you were like starting the story as the player from waking up as RoboCop or waking up as this guy with the tongue. So sorry, I didn't watch it. So
yeah, he didn't actually.
Tongue Man.
I don't even remember. I don't even think he had like a name, which might have been part of the led to the humanity slide. You know.
Right, but then starting from there, and when you look at the story of RoboCop, he doesn't even remember his life as Murphy, and it'd be interesting playing that where maybe one player or all the players basically start the game as a cyborg with their memories, what the corporation thinks or the military thinks or whatever, wiped. Your memory is wiped, and then you're slowly regaining your humanity. And you could use like a World of Darkness humanity scale or I would say a humanity scale, even though it's the same as the morality scale from the core system, but the humanity scale vampire just sounds better.
Yeah, right, 'cause it's humanity.
Yeah, and humanity 1 is instead of it's the absolute beast, humanity 1 is you are just a machine.
Yeah.
And as you slowly move up the humanity scale, because you're playing heroes, and you start to gain memories of your old life.
Yeah.
And the game master could do that by giving you like sheets of paper, like kind of like what you did, Wayne, when we were playing the Changelings, as we started to remember our life in the fairy world through dreams. But in this case, you actually remember it, not like, well, I guess the fairy world is real, but your real life from the past.
A way to represent that is as a GM, like you could have, for example, say if they were in the military, as you said, and they were maybe this squad of like cyber assassins or something. You could start off describing the scene as their target. You see your target across the room. You know, you give range and everything and shoot. But as they gain humanity, the description of the target changes to you see a man across the room, or then you start actually describing what they look like or what they're saying, instead of kind of just the black and white that a computer would say.
Well, you could do that. Like, I mean, we talked about Hard Boiled, how we change kind of the descriptions to kind of match the kind of story you're telling.
Yeah.
The Game Master descriptions. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, especially if you dressed up the way you were talking to people.
Yeah, he didn't need that.
No, but yeah, there's lots we can do with that. You could be how you're interpreting how people are, because you're talking about the tongue, and that's like the taste, right? And that's human taste. But what about your ears? What if they're all cybernetic? Then you're hearing as, let's say, a machine, and the Game Master can play with that.
Yeah.
You're seeing as a machine, so what you might describe I'm just kind of borrowing from Geordi, Star Trek Next Generation, you might describe what the walls are made of first before you describe what the color is. Because to you as a machine, it's more important, can I shoot through that wall, as using the cyber assassin example, then it's pink or it's white or whatever. Whereas a human might immediately notice the little touches. There's pictures on the wall, pictures of families, and that becomes more. The game master can more humanize the description, more humanize the NPCs, like you're saying, more humanize the targets.
It'd be really interesting to have it almost as a reverse. You know how in a regular system, when you buy cybernetic parts, I'll replace my eye with thermovision or something like that. If you had to go the other way, this level I'm going to purchase color vision.
I mean, like that.
Or something along those
You
lines.
could do that. I mean, I think, you could actually, because players like to build their character and they want to see their character progress and have an active involvement. You could do that. And they're basically upgrading or making the sly changes to their cybernetics where it's less efficient, let's say, to do what their task is as an assassin or a cyber soldier or whatever it is, to where it's actually just giving them like real superficial things. They can now, it's not just differentiating between poison and not poison. They can now have different tastes and flavors. And that basically, the players know that's going to help them regain and find out who they are. So
what a cool scene that would be too. Like if they're tasting something to see like the chemical content of a spent explosive, something, and for the first time you describe, and it's really bitter.
And he spits it out. And the other ones are like, what are you doing? And like you could do that. Everybody's kind of on board with trying to regain the humanity, or people can secretly go to the game master and it's like, I don't want to just be this ruthless killing machine. I want to regain my humanity and maybe try to get the others to change as well. I think there's a lot you can do.
Going up the scale rather than down it.
Well, I mean, you could do the reverse, of course. You could be describing things normally, and the more cybernetics the person starts to get, they start to notice that your descriptions are changing to very static, very mechanical, very technical descriptions, we'll say. Very flavorless.
And it's kind of hard in a group. I mean, it's the same difficulty you have
it's
with
hard in the group. If they're doing
kind of thing.
It's hard in the group if they are going at different levels. Because then they're going to need a different description. But if you can get everybody on board, and basically, like you should do in a lot of games, is saying, this game is not about you being cyber assassins. This game is about you becoming human again.
And then half the group drops.
Well, good riddance.
Sorry, because me as a human still kill things and be badass. You can still be badass.
I guess.
Yeah. And then
so after I go up to human, could I then decide I want to be badass again and start implanting more stuff? Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And you got to think, who would they choose to be these cyber assassons? They might choose criminals. Absolutely. Or you were a family man, and it's just like, what did you do? Or family, or a mother or something.
Oh, that'd be really, really weird.
So that could be tragic in a number of levels. Just like you found out, 50 years ago, you had a family. Or you find out, 2 years ago, you killed a family.
If your players are okay with kind of going a little bit out of it, you could change up the gender on them. When you start out with a cybernetic character, maybe gender is just not an issue. You are a body with a gun, but you find out later on that you were a woman, or maybe even that you were a child, a teenager or something.
I think that's why I'm going to have fun with Eclipse Face when I finally get a chance to do it, because
that game sounds so cool.
That's what happens.
That sounds really cool.
You slot into... It's kind of like the cybernetic thing, but you wake up in like a different body or something completely different, right?
What happened? Who knows?
I think that'd be fun.
And I think there is a lot of stuff, like when we open it, broaden the definition of cyborg to be about uploading your subconsciousness. I mean, that opens up different ways you can play. You could just, maybe that's all you do. I mean, you've just put it on the computer, and think about how that would just change, that little minor thing would change the game for you as a player and the game master. Let's say, if you want to actually kill somebody, you got to make sure all their copies are dead. And imagine, it's like, the game master could actually foreshadow that you're a target, or give you hints that you're a target, because your copies start getting killed first. Because that's what assassins do in this world first, is like, if I kill him, he might immediately jump to another copy, And maybe there's some restriction is people don't want to have duplicates of themselves at the same time, so they're only going to jump when they're in danger. So they start killing all the copies so they can kind of zero in on the final target.
That'd be really cool too, because imagine like
who's trying to kill them?
The social networks of the future. You know, if you suddenly get a profile on Hyper Facebook, it gets erased or something.
Yeah. Or it's like DOA, the movie DOA.
I haven't seen it, but
Dead on Arrival, and basically it has one of the best openings in a movie where he walks into the police station. I like to report a murder. Whose? Mine. And then you're finding out what happened. You know? And it's like, yeah, I'd like to report a murder. Who's mine? Somebody's killing all my copies.
Nice.
And eventually they're going to kill me. Yeah, so.
That's pretty cool.
That'd be interesting what the laws would be. It's like, well, technically that's not a murder. Or maybe it is. And it's like,
almost like you've read Eclipse Phase already. Kind of like, yeah, that's like real sticky. Like, if you destroy, like, if you were a cyborg, right? Kind of go back to cyborgs, and
which is the topic.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of get killed. Is that a murder? Were you a person or were you property?
And talking about the type of game too. I mean, you want a social game? There it is. Because if you have transcended the physical body. To where you can go to other bodies, or maybe you just exist on a cyborg thing. It's completely social. Your social status is everything.
I was just thinking, probably, I'm not sure how much you could use this in the game, but if there was a percentage, it's only murder if 50% of the person was biological.
That's pretty cool.
But if if it's over 50% was cybernetic, then you're fair game. Actually, that could be something. If you had a law like that in your dystopian world, then people kind of like are really watching that line because they don't want to go.
If you damage the skin as opposed to the cyber.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you're now 40% cybernetic. You're pretty awesome. Anybody can kill you, and they'll get a fine.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's not so much. Yeah, you're not.
It's just harder to kill you.
Yeah, you're not a person. You're property.
Yeah.
It's not murder. It's property damage.
Too, is where cybernetics are far too expensive for the regular person. You're owned by the Toyota Corporation.
Yes, but I own my biological parts. So,
sure.
So,
and when we come and take those cybernetic parts, you're free to try and live on what you got left.
You're 60% cybernetic. We have a controlling majority of your body.
And that could be a really compelling game right there as they come to reclaim it.
Yeah.
It's like you're working for a very immoral or corporation, or you disagree with them, and they're like, okay, fine, you're fired. And fired means they'll reclaim their property. And it's not just the company car. It's the company arm, the company legs, the company eyes. So you're basically got like a fugitive game. And you could have it where if you have a group, then the entire party has decided that they want. And that's how it starts. It's like, you don't want to do this anymore. So now when they get you, they're going to take it away. And it's all legal.
I've always liked the idea of the difference between the classes of, like, say, the biological people who are still fully 100% human versus maybe the people who are cybernetic. I kind of like... I saw the movie Surrogate a while back.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Really good movie. I liked it a lot. But it's kind of where 99% of the population has moved onto these robotic bodies. And there's still maybe 1% who, for religious or whatever reason, they don't. And they're really a minority. It's almost like Native Americans, where they're kind of forced onto these little reservations, and how they fight back and deal with that. It's really interesting. I always figured I'd want to run a campaign like that with the player characters as the human resistance against a majority cybernetic world, because it's such a underdog kind of position.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good fun.
Another thing would be Rifts has this character, the crazy hero, the crazies, where they have implants in their head, and the implants can enhance them.
Yeah, but makes them crazy.
As soon as you start messing with the mind, it has that downside. So that would be interesting to play. Not only that, but then you can think about, if we get back into like, if you have implants that can change your personality. Like maybe you're a criminal, and part of the rehabilitation process is, you're a rapist or a murderer, and they just implant something in your head, and it takes away those tendencies. But of course, then it's like, who are you? Like, is this really you? Yeah.
Cyberpunk with chipping. It's almost like a USB slot in the back of your neck, and you can just plug in a little chip that gives you skills and abilities. And, it's one thing to say,
the ultimate spy. Or the ultimate,
And they had personality chips as well. It's one thing to, like in the Matrix, where you plug in one, you can fly a helicopter. That doesn't change that much about your character, but there's one, for example, like the smooth guy. You plug it in and you can chat up girls in a bar, which maybe you're not very good at.
Yeah.
Or change your character personality. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, it would be cool. And you could have like something where you change your image. You have like cybernetic skin or something, and it can slightly change. It can change its skin color and make slight adjustments to, the width of your nose, your eye color.
Well, isn't in the GURPS? I don't remember if it's the GURPS technology or the
Ultratech.
I think so. It's the one where you can change every aspect of your body. It has like self-inflating bladders, so you can change from a man to a woman.
Yeah.
Really easily.
Yeah.
It's a bit extreme. But
How would a bladder do that?
He's not talking about the
like a bag that holds air or liquid.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I have bladders all over my body.
Yeah.
You go to the bathroom again? Yes.
Don't hug me. Don't hug me.
Yeah.
I would think if you had more bladders, then you wouldn't have to go so much. Yeah, you'd think that.
It's really a horrible existence.
Yeah.
But I always thought that'd be really fun in a fantasy game where you have somebody who has like a shape change power. It doesn't seem like that far of a stretch in that characters can figure out that you're facing a villain who can shape change pretty easily. But in more sci-fi kind of world, it's not kind of a conclusion that comes as easily. So I imagine that a villain who changes their features.
It depends. I'll say it depends how ingrained in the system it is.
True.
Like, for example, for like Eclipse Phase, where everybody can just swap bodies anytime they want,
right.
they've actually taken precautions where they actually, like, encode something on your digital consciousness so that is your ID code. So even when you slot into a new body...
So people recognize you by your code, not by your looks.
Yeah, like, they've kind of adapted to the, like, brain scan thing, right? So that it's not a visual scan, it's like a brain scan. Okay, these brain patterns match the record for this person, therefore this is the person, regardless of what they look like. So...
What fun if you can hack those too, huh?
That's part of the system too. But I was going to say, so in a setting where changing your appearance is kind of not kind of an everyday occurrence, then yeah, it could be quite interesting to I don't know have people not know that, and hey, kind of find out through the story. Oh, this guy, all those people we've dealt with, they're actually the same person. We just kind of didn't know it.
I remember there was a Cyberpunk module where you were sent in to rescue some guy, and it turned out that the people who had kidnapped him had surgically altered themselves to look like that guy. And this was pretty interesting.
Like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Where they keep swapping up.
Not as cheesy.
Or the Nicolas Cage movie Face Off, where they swap faces.
Oh, yeah. But I was thinking when you mentioned about villains, and just to switch, so we talked about protagonists, but how would you incorporate cyborgs as antagonists?
Yeah.
What could be interesting things you could do? Yeah, and one thing is you could have a villain that's basically the same personality, but it comes in different forms every time. If you're talking about the classic brain in the jar, and he keeps putting his brain in different like people or cybernetic organisms. So in one case, you could be meeting a giant cybernetic or robotic dragon. In another adventure, suddenly he's just a man. Yeah.
How cool would that be to think that you're facing off against an entire organization, and it turns out it's just one guy who's switching bodies on you?
Yeah, or he can have like mass control over all of these different things. So not only the minions are the man, or the minions are the master. The master is the minions.
How much fun would that be? That's so cool.
Or
you talk about the classic. You walk into that like hall of mirrors, and it's like, who am I? And he keeps shooting these different mirrors, and it's like that's the whole game. It's like now, of course, the game master's going to have to show some restraint.
Right.
It has to be fair that eventually they can outfox the master minion, and it's not just okay, that was just the minion, and that was a minion too.
It's like we've gone through
that
99 freaking
giant dragon,
just a
minion. Yeah. but I think it would make for a really plausible, if you allow me that, a plausible reoccurring villain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you don't have the helicopter suddenly appearing and he goes, "Oh, you foiled me this time."
Well, if you're doing kind of like if you're doing kind of the upload thing, I know I keep talking about Eclipse Phase, but people are only backed up at certain regular intervals. So in other words, let's like 2 months, right? Or whatever kind of agreement you make with the company. So like even if you do kill the one person, they are reinstated from a backup, but they've lost 2 months because they only remember the last time they were backed up. So that would be a way to kind of lessen the power of a recurring villain because hey, you killed him you killed this instance of him, and now he kind of backs up to whatever version he was before, but he doesn't remember everything that happened. And so now he kind of has to either like build himself back up or, get back to the point where he was. So it would be a way to kind of use the same villain, just at a lower power level to kind of give the player some reward,
Yeah, or have the characters themselves as the villain. Maybe they're fighting against this evil guy, and it turns out that they were just a backup of him.
Yeah, it's not necessarily playing having cyborgs as antagonists, but just when you're talking about if you kill a minion and then you find out it's not the master, but then you can still get memories. Like if you can upload, then maybe you can uploading from the dead, for example.
Wow.
So if you can get to that body within a few hours, then you can
like in D&D where you just captured and tortured people.
I was going to say
there you kill them and then just upload all those memories.
It's a technological version of the Speak with Dead spell.
Yeah.
So Speak with Dead, or like with the Auspex Spirit Touch, starting from Vampire, the Masquerade, and the Requiem. That special power. But you could actually then know the villain's plans better than him. If you combine both, you can upload stuff from dead bodies.
Yeah.
And combine with he loses 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months of his memory. You actually know his plan better than him.
What a fun way of doing that! Like, because if that were possible,
it also makes for great detective stories.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that. If that were possible, an organization would, almost by necessity, have to be based on cells instead of being one fully tiered organization. Because if you killed one minion and it led all the way to the top, that would be just too easy to crack. But what a great way that you could have that with the characters is you have to move from this cell and then you move up to the next level of cells, and nobody in it knows who like their parallel versions are. It'd be a good way to keep it balanced. That makes sense?
It makes sense to me. Yeah.
It kind of, depending on what kind of story you want to tell, like it could be a really, what's the word I'm trying to know? Human, I'm drawing a blank too, but like, so let's say you kill the villain, right? And you get all this information from his body, and meanwhile he has to resort to a backup that's 2 months old.
Yeah.
Is he the same person? Like that backup, just because backup A had that plan, does that mean backup B is going to follow the same plan?
But did he become a villain in the 2 months?
All right, so maybe villain was a very kind of broad sense, but
that's fun for moral play too.
Yeah, thank you. Moral
I think 2
play,
months is a bit short, but I understand you. I get your point. But
yeah, 2 months is a bit short, but like I wasn't imagining.
All right, now we're talking.
All right,
we're moving in the right direction.
9 months, a year. Yeah. I wasn't imagining the mustache twirling, snidely whiplash villain that gets backed up. Kind of the ultra villain, but just some kind of, bad person, either through circumstance or whatever. It's kind of a bit like the... Sorry.
I actually interrupted you, but...
I was going to say, it was a bit like the Minority Report movie, right? Mm-hmm. Just because, it gets in the time travel a little bit, but just because the precogs could see that this person was going to, or had the ability to commit this murder, does that necessarily mean they would have?
Right.
Yeah, they will be a criminal, but that doesn't mean a criminal now.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I was thinking about also using the antagonist as a cyborg is how that would kind of affect their humanity, their motivation, and using that. Why?
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Are they a villain and a cyborg, or are they a villain because they're a cyborg, or in spite of the fact that they're a cyborg? Are they trying to, maybe they have some misguided notion that they're railing against cybernetics?
Yeah.
They could be the human resistance in a cyborg world. And they just tear out the cybernetics. They capture, and so they're kind of like, on the one hand, a serial killer, but on the other hand, they think that humanity is getting lost.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have the cyborgs as villains. That would be a chance for actually humans to be villains.
Well, no, but that's the thing. It could be a fun moral play.
Well, I kind of went there, but yeah.
You could do something where...
or he could be a cyborg. It's self-loathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. You could think... we talked about the villain, kind of the intelligent villain. When we did our villains episode, we kind of had the sympathetic villain and the smart villain. If you wanted to go a sympathetic route for it as well, you could say that maybe because he's got too many cybernetic things, he's gone crazy.
Yep.
It's a sad one. Or like...
maybe he didn't even choose to have them.
Yeah.
So we talked about...
You could do the failed Robo.
Our cyber assassin idea is for the players.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what he was. He woke up one day and somebody did it, and he's going to find out. And on his or her mission to find out, he will kill whatever. It's like basically you've unleashed a Terminator.
Yeah.
And the Terminator doesn't want to kill John Connor. The Terminator wants to find out, why am I a Terminator?
Absolutely. Something like Dr. Octopus in the second Spider-Man movie, where he's lost a lot of control over his own brain because they're kind of hooked into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that, we talked about like slotting in like a chip to change the personality. Yeah, maybe if this person, it's kind of almost like a little bit like a werewolf story, in that, the traditional werewolf kind of doesn't remember what he did. Mm-hmm. So here you have the cybernetic person with, the slot in the back of their head, and somebody
pushes a button somewhere and they kill.
Yeah, exactly. They get hijacked. They don't remember what happened. Or
it could be a mislabeled personality chip. And they think it's like Smooth Talker, but it's actually Master Villain or something. Something like that.
Serial killer.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, damn, that serial killer hack got me again.
But when they take it off, and they put a normal one, but if you catch the person with a different personality, you say, I don't remember I did these things.
Yeah.
I didn't do these things. If I don't remember it, is it a crime?
Yeah. Yeah, or
it's kind of taking the
insanity defense.
Well, I was thinking more of like amnesia and things like that.
You can also have the Puppet Master kind of story, where something like Ghost Out of the Shell, where the villain can hack into other people's cyber brains and control them.
Right.
So, yeah, lots of fun ways to go about it.
Yeah, you can find out the master is not the master. He's actually, or she's actually got some implant.
Yet another pawn.
Not another pawn. Again, the master has to show her strength. Everything is just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, it's like, does this ladder ever end?
Are we playing Meat? What's that one?
Meat Grinder?
No, is it Metroid or something? It's like a bunch of different levels, and you got a bunch of different bosses.
Isn't that kind of like every platform game ever?
All right.
Sorry, the princess is in another castle.
Yeah,
it's like cybernetic body.
Yeah, that's the original Mario. Well, I beat that castle, and it's like, come on, I'm right there. I couldn't have jumped up and grabbed the princess when Bowser number 5 takes you to the next castle. Ah,
what a jerk that Bowser.
Yeah, exactly. Or King Koopa.
All right, well, this was our third creature feature. We didn't mention it in the beginning, but so creature feature cyborgs, and basically just talking about what are cyborgs and how you can play them as protagonists and antagonists. And I think just like, I guess our standard advice with any games, if you're going to have cybernetics and you're going to have cyborgs, then do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't just have it cyborgs be, I replaced my arm and it works as normal.
But you could do that.
Well, then why have it?
Yeah, then why have it? Yeah. There's obviously there's more that you can do with cyborgs than just have guys that have a strong arm.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for joining us again. Check us out online, www.idleredhands.com, idleredhands.com. Post in the forum, like us on Facebook, listen to us on Stitcher.
And
Drive Through
RPG.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Drive Through RPG. We average 9 new titles a day. That's over 60 a week. And we've got well over 15,000 RPG titles online right now. Drive Through RPG, the one true source for RPGs.
Down the road.
Idle Red Hands, recorded in Kobe, Japan. See us online at www.idleredhands.com. Music provided by Tripod Jimmy, and the song was Roadkill. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.